There aren't many musicians who have fused pop and jazz sensibilities successfully. Donald Fagen is one such musician. He was one of the leaders of the band Steely Dan and then had a successful solo career as well. Today I'd like to talk about one of his songs, The Goodbye Look, from his first solo album from the early 80s. This is a samba-like composition, and it tells the story of an American expatriate who gets stuck in Cuba when the revolution occurs in the 60s. Now, we're going to look at the musical parts of the song. It is very clever from a lyrics perspective. But what I like to do today is walk you through the chorus of the song and talk a little bit about the underlying theory and how you can understand it. This lesson is going to have three parts. In the first part, I'm going to play the song itself, or actually just the chorus and then the transition part, which goes back to the verse. In the second part, I'm going to teach you how to play the individual chords, which are quite interesting in their own right. And finally, in the third part, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the theory, and you can find the timestamps in the description, as well as a link to the original rendition of the song that you can find on YouTube. Let's get started. Now, the favorite instrument of Donald Fagen is the Rhodes piano, so in this honor I've changed my sound to a Rhodes sound, and this is also the sound that he uses when he plays the parts to The Goodbye Look. Here's how the chorus goes. Let's take a step back and slowly work through the individual chords. So I'm going to methodically walk through all of the chords I've played here. And as I said, we're only going to look at the chorus. This is going to be the scope of today's lesson. The song itself is in the key of C, meaning it was constructed on the C major scale. And it's a samba-like song that is kind of a one-note samba. The first chord of the chorus is an F major 9. Now I'd like, as I go through the chords, to also note that the degree which I'm playing in the C major scale. So as I've said, this song is constructed on the C major scale. And one thing you can do is you can, instead of looking at the individual notes, you can number the degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 again. And then when you talk about chords, you can say what degree of the scale you're playing. So for example, this F major 9 would be the 4th degree. So I would write it down on the screen and you can follow along as a 4, let's say, major 7. I'm going to exclude the higher degrees and the alterations and all of these things, just to bring out the sort of fundamental underlying harmony and the motion of the degrees. Okay, so the first chord is an F major 9. This is followed by a B7, sharp 5, sharp 9. When I say B7, I mean a B dominant 7. If there's a major or a minor, I would explicitly say so. And this is built on the 7th degree. So this will be just, I write it out as a 7. I'm not going to write a dominant, because if you don't have an alteration, as I've mentioned, the default is a dominant chord. Next chord is a B flat major 13th chord. So here's the B flat major 7th chord, and added here is the 13th degree. Then you get an A7 sharp 5. This is the 6th degree, and the B flat major 13th is the flattened 7th degree. That goes into the 6th. Then you get a D minor 11. You know, you can play a D minor 11 here, or you can omit the center note, or maybe play a G instead, and this would give you a D9 sus4. So either of these would be fine, actually. They kind of have the same sound, and they both fit in the context quite well. This is followed by a G9 sus4. Now a D minor is a 2, or a minor to 2 minor, and then the 5 is, again, just this, the G9 sus4 is a 5, built on the 5th degree because G is the 5th degree. Then you get an E minor 7 flat 5. This is the flat 5 here. Going into an A7 flat 9. So this is an A7 chord, and here I'm adding the flat 9 on top. So this is a 3, or 3 minor flat 5, to a 6. Then again you get a D9 sus4, which is a 2, or 2 minor, to a G9 sus4, which is a 5, E minor 7 flat 5, A dominant 7 flat 9. So you're really just repeating this set of 4 chords again. And then you go into a transition where you have an F major 7, going to a B7 sharp 5, then B flat major 13th, A dominant 7, a D minor 11, or a D9 sus4 to a G9 sus4. And then you have a beautiful transition of 6 chords, which is an A minor 9, G major 9, if you could maybe play it like this, or just a G major 7, F major 9, C 13th, F major 7, F minor major 7, and then just the C major. Okay, so you can actually take these chords and play them, and they sound pretty beautiful in their own right. And in fact, it's a great way to enhance your harmonic vocabulary. So I certainly urge you to pause the video right here, right now, and go and work through the chords yourself and just make sure that you can play them. This will also help you out when we start talking right now about kind of the underlying harmonic structure. Now, when trying to understand this song, it really makes more sense, and this is true for any song, it makes more sense to think in terms of degrees and not of actual chords. Because what degrees do is they bring out the inherent underlying structure of the piece you're playing, the harmonic structure. Now, if you look at the numbers I've put on the screen next to each chord, then you get kind of a sequence of numbers, and this is the best way to think about harmony. So you get 4 to a 7, to a 7 flat, to a 6, to a 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, right? And 4, 7, 7 flat, 6, 2, 5, and then you get a minor 6, a major 5, a major 4, or just a 4, a 1, 4, and minor 4, and then just back to a major 1. Let's take a look at the first or the set of chords that comprise the chorus itself. Now, how can we understand a 4 going into a 7, flattened 7 to a 6? Well, first of all, whenever you see a chromatic motion of degrees, that usually indicates that there's a triton substitution somewhere in there. And by that I mean that usually the middle degree, the kind of one that goes chromatically, is or has been substituted for another chord which is a triton away. Now if we take a B flat, this flattened 7 here, then E is a triton up or a triton down, doesn't matter if you go up or down. So this means that the original kind of progression of chords might have been something like, so there was an E minor or an E minor flat 5, or maybe an E dominant 7 with a sharp 5 and a sharp 9. But the point is that somewhere during the writing of the song, there was a progression that looked like a 7 to a 3 to a 6. And it was, the 3 was triton substituted for the flattened 7. And this kind of chromatic motion creates a very pleasing motion or voice leading of the chords into each other. Now, if you take a look at this 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, and then again 3, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, then what you have here, and it becomes pretty obvious when you think about it this way, is a motion in fourths. And this kind of is an underlying theme in a lot of jazz harmony and theory, right? This goes into this, these two are a perfect fourth apart, a perfect fourth apart, a perfect fourth apart, and a perfect fourth apart. And this kind of motion of chords is really at the heart of jazz harmony, right? In fact, the most, I'd say, commonly used progression in jazz is a 2, 5, 1. So a 2 going into a 5 going into a 1. Usually the 2 is a minor and the 5 is a dominant 7 and the 1 is a major 7. This is a 2-5-1 in the key of E flat. 2, 5, 1. And you can extend this idea of motion in fourths to, let's say, a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And you can alter many of the chords in between. You can do a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Now, once you realize this, in fact, this kind of exposes many of the patterns in, well, a lot of jazz songs, and in particular in The Goodbye Look. Because, again, as you can see on the screen, what you really have here is a motion in fourths. The only part that doesn't really follow immediately from kind of fundamental or straightforward jazz harmony theory is this. This just motion here, which doesn't have any particular sort of deep theoretical, I guess, motivation behind it. And I guess this is also what makes it so appealing, and it's uncommon, it's different, and it grabs your ear. You might argue a little bit and that sometimes you can just really take a chord, the shape of a chord, let's say this A major 9 chord, and then move it around to, let's say, C major 9, D major 9, F major 9, G major 9, E major 9. So just by moving this shape, you can get kind of an interesting melody going. So you might say that kind of this motion from the G to the F might be maybe this G major 9 to the F major 9 does make a little kind of, it's a motion of a fixed shape. But that's kind of a stretch in my opinion. So you could say this is part of the harmonic talent that Donald Fagen has for building these interesting chord progressions and using them in sort of a more of a pop music context. So I hope I've given you some food for thought, some beautiful chords to reproduce and play and incorporate into your own playings, and also some sort of insight into the way that the Goodbye Look harmony has been constructed. That's it. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I will see you next time.